Hi, I'm Philip Bloom and I'm in Miami right now. I've had a chance to try out something that's been done to the C100. It's got autofocus. I don't like autofocus in video. I've never had any success with it because it just doesn't know really what you want to be in focus. It can't read my mind. But what they've done here is they're using not just contrast, which is how autofocus normally works. It's got dual pixels in there, and one of the pixels detects the distance. So it's got two technologies, distance and contrast. So it should be better. There's only one way to find out if it's better. Try it. So I went down to the beach and I found a lady with wings. As you do in Miami, they're all over the place. And I got to walk towards the camera at f1.2. Trying to keep focus at 1.2, it's so hard manually. Here, did a pretty good job. The reason it did a good job is because she's dead center of frame. The way that it detects the autofocus is it is actually just the center. There's actually a square on there, and as long as that square is filled by your subject, that will stay in focus. You can see I'm on the slate here, and as we move off the slate onto her, it racks focus to her. This is a really good thing, but it's also a limitation because it is just the center of frame, which will affect your composition, and there's other things you need to take into consideration to make it work for you. There are times when I could really do with an autofocus that works. And one of those key ones for me is when you are taking your hands off of the camera. Situations with like a steady cam type device or glide cam, or a Movi, which is the gimbal-based system, which you have to let go of the camera. You cannot touch the camera, and therefore you need a first AC with a remote follow focus. And if you don't have that money, what are you gonna do? Autofocus and this device, it's potentially a marriage made in heaven. My first test was with the 35mm f2, one of my favorite lenses because it has EOS. I use it handheld quite a lot. When you're moving around, you're not going to have something in the frame the whole time, and it really does need to be filling that whole square, especially when it comes to the contrast part of the way it gets autofocus, not just distance but contrast. So if something is brighter behind, it will tend to go back onto the background rather than what you want in the foreground. You need to keep that in mind when you're doing your shots. I was having a lot more success with the tighter shots of the ladies moving around because I was able to keep that whole portion in frame, the center part. Next up, I switched to handheld, and the first lens I actually put on was the 40mm. It's the STM lens, it's that little pancake. I love that little lens. Obviously make sure that your lens has autofocus. If it doesn't have autofocus on it, it won't work. Pretty much all the Canon EF glass does have it. There's going to be a couple of exceptions like the tilt shift lenses. Make sure it has autofocus and it will work. It doesn't have to be any special glass like the STMs. The STMs are a lot quieter. Handheld in this situation for me is the reactionary sort of actuality preparation shots, the one that's very, you don't know what's going to happen and you're whipping the camera around and getting these little moments, little details. And this was a really fun challenge, and it really did perform actually really well. I go from one lady to the other, and in the center there is just empty space, and it goes to the background because it thinks that's what you want. It doesn't know that I want to go from her to her. I found a solution. The solution is simply go into your menus and program number 7 button here to be a focus lock. This changed everything for me, and I started getting really good results. I simply was on the lady and she was center framed, and as soon as I started coming off of her, I hit the focus lock, and as it moved to the other lady, as she started to come into frame, I then released it and it grabbed her. That gave me a beautiful shot. From that moment on, I realized this was the way to use it. Don't think autofocus is suddenly going to make things really super easy for you. You can just wave it around and it's magically going to succeed. It's still very much a camera that requires skill and patience. The more I understood how it worked, the better the results were. So when I'm pulling focus manually, it's a very natural way. I start slow and I pick up speed and I get it, well, hopefully in focus. But the way that the camera autofocus works is it is literally one speed and very fast, which can work for you in certain situations, but when you want it to be nice and subtle and smooth, there is no option. It is just that one single speed, which needs to be taken into consideration too. Anybody who shoots wide open all the time is asking for focus nightmares. So of course, what did I do on this shot? 1.2, 50mm, moving around with these ladies. I didn't use focus lock on this. I wanted to see, using composition and choreographed movement, could I get any good results? So what I did was, I kept the lady in frame, and as she moved out, the timing was spot on for the lady in the background to come across, and then bang, it went onto her. And it worked really well. I think autofocus is much more about stuff that is unpredictable. Stuff that's predictable, you shouldn't need it so much because you know where your focus points are. It's the stuff that you don't know what's going to happen. Documentaries where you really have a tiny crew, for example. Especially weddings though. Weddings are so hard to shoot. You can't ask the bride to to walk down the aisle again. So you walk down and I missed the focus, I'm sorry, or ask the groom to put the ring back on the finger, or the bit where he threw the bouquet, I missed it. You've got to get it all nailed. So any helping things like this could make things so much easier for you. And especially anything that's going to have challenging lighting situations where you do have to open up your iris, it could come in really, really handy. I would love to be able to change the speed of the autofocus. I'd love to be able to change the position of where it actually has the focus. But as it stands right now, there's definitely situations where I could use it. It makes total sense to get it upgraded. It's 1/10 of the price of the camera. Think of the autofocus upgrade as another tool in your chest. Knowing I can flick it in when I need it, when those situations are really challenging, definitely worth having it. In fact, I'd love to have it in all of my cameras, really. It makes total sense to actually have that option there. You may use it more than me. Who knows? It just depends on the style of shooting that you do. If you do a lot of that actuality and a lot of that wedding type stuff, I can just imagine using it a fairly large amount. On a tripod, I still think I'm going to be using it manually. Handheld though, be interesting to see how much it creeps in of my gradual use. And the other thing is when you have that really irritating person who cannot keep still. No matter how many times you ask them to stop rocking backwards and forwards, they still do it. It's like playing sort of like a video game, pulling focus. There's no way you can do an interview if you're having to do it that whole way through. You should still ask them to stop because it's still irritating. But hey, this could actually be very beneficial.